Ooh. I personally think James O'Brien is one of the most vile people in the United Kingdom, in the UK media. He worked for LBC Radio. He's a shock jockey, but Dan Wootton's picked up on him, and some people have some things to say about him. So here we go.
James O'Brien is one of the vilest people that I've ever seen commentate on anything.
And number 47 on the countdown of the worst of 2024, James O'Brien, from what I describe now as the Labour Broadcasting Company, with his mate Tony Blair, advocating for censorship, for the end of social media platforms. This is how our elite think in the UK today. Watch.
Jurisdiction as well. You know, the server will be in one country, the person writing the message will be in another country. We've arguably seen this a little bit with the riots recently. But do you foresee a point in the not too distant future where other countries are going to have to follow Brazil's lead and take actual action against platform owners for the dissemination of disinformation?
Well, I'd certainly see a position where the world's going to have to come together and agree some rules around social media platforms. And I think that's, you know, quite what the answer is and what the right system of regulation is, I'm not sure, but I am sure there should be, and there's got to be, because it's not just, you know, how people can provoke, you know, hostility and hatred, but I think, and I don't know what the answer to this is, you know, and I'm just saying that. I don't.
We can't carry on as we are.
But we can't carry on as we are.
Tunes later.
Well, what gets me is people who voted for Brexit got called chief or got called gammon. So I stuck it on my profile picture, Chief Gammon, because the gammon is usually bright pink, red-faced. Have you seen the cut of James O'Brien? He looks like what they call us. He looks like a gammon. He's permanently angry with the world. He gets, you know, he's a journalist. He's not going to the coalface. He's not having to work in a sweaty foundry. He's not risking his life going up scaffolding. He's sat there pontificating about how the world should be run his way. Tony Blair's trying to stay neutral. But we all know, if you listen, there's a very short podcast, part of an interview with Dominic Cummings, and no matter how much grievance he has with the government, he explains how the government works and about how the civil service runs the country despite the leaders. He basically trashes the fact that we have prime ministers and ministers, and that the real work, the real workings, the decisions basically are already made. And where I'm going with that is Tony Blair changed the civil service when he was in power. And Tony Blair, via his institution, was proud to say he was embedded in governments across the world to advise on restrictions during our ghastly 3-year period. Where that is really important, Tony Blair has never stopped running this country. He's never stopped. He's behind the scenes and his men are in place. They are the upper echelon of the civil service. So when he sits there as though he's just passing an opinion, he knows everything he needs is in place to change the face of social media should they choose to go down that road. And the left can't wait to go down that road because they can't stand narrative challenge because their narrative is so weak and so demanding. James O'Brien is one of the vilest people that I've ever seen commentate on anything. And I think he'll win you this year's award again. I think it's a home run for Mr. O'Brien.
I have a feeling he might feature again somewhere in the countdown, Alani, that's for sure. But isn't it so terrifying that people like James O'Brien think the solution is just to shut us up? Lalani, that's the solution. If we can't share our views, then everything will be okay.
Yeah, it is absolutely terrifying because you know what? He doesn't want an independent media. He doesn't want independent journalists. He wants he wants the media to be a government mouthpiece. That's what he wants. He wants everything that's out in the media to follow the narrative of the government, which is crazy to me. You should be able to have discussion and debate and talk, whether you believe that man-made climate change is real or not, whether the cows should be fed these chemicals that might come out in the milk. You should be able to have that discussion. You should be able to talk about whether or not you want to be jabbed or not, or locked in your home or not, or whether, the suicide pods that they want to bring out, whether that's right or not. We can't just have a media that goes along as the government mouthpiece and as the narrative mouthpiece and as the elite's mouthpiece without anybody challenging it at all. And they want to take away that challenge. And that's why they want to take away Twitter, because that's the last place really at the moment where we can actually speak freely, apart from, independent platforms like this that then have to go and make their own websites and whatever, because YouTube are going to take them down, or Facebook are going to take them down, or Instagram are going to take them down.
Exactly. And what he doesn't like, what O'Brien and Blair don't like, is that thanks to Trump, there has been a shifting of the Overton window, his alliance with Elon Musk, the fact that Mark Zuckerberg has had to admit this year, I got it wrong over COVID. Well, you should be apologizing, by the way. You should be reinstating everyone who you removed from Facebook, but it's changing and they don't like it. And number 46, though, on the worst of 2024, the MSM go mad over Nigel Farage overseas.
Why did he?
This game, you're not ready for it.
Did he need you?
Well, that's a matter for, his team to answer, not me. No, listen, it was right that I came.
Right for who?
It was the right thing to do. I have friends. I don't know whether you do or not. Maybe you don't. But I have friends, and when they're in having a tough time, it's right to go and support them.
And is that the sense you've got, that he's having a tough time right now?
He nearly died.
Do you think he's having a tough time right now?
He nearly died.
And do you think that's changed him? Do you think? I mean, you must have spoken to him if you're a good friend.
I think that he's obviously very thoughtful about what happened. A dramatic failure of really dramatic failure of Secret Service, who normally are so efficient and so good at what they do. So I'm here to show support for him.
Just tell us one thing. Have you seen Liz Truss here?
No.
Are you looking for her?
No.
Would you like to see her here?
I would see anybody that's friendly. I'd be very happy to meet. But I believe I think Boris is here somewhere as well, which is very surprising.
But you haven't made contact with either of them?
No.
And are you expecting to?
No, really.
Have you seen Donald Trump yet?
No, I haven't.
Are you going to?
Yes.
When's your audience with him?
I don't know yet.
But you're here to see him tonight?
I am.
And
which way are we going?
Did he ask you to come?
I'm here.
But did he ask you? Were you invited?
That's it got to do with you.
Should you not be with your constituents?
That's it got to do with you.
It's only a question.
There's an 8-day week. As long as I work 7 of them, we're okay.
Okay. And you're here because you're still a big Trump fan. You think Trump's politics are the way forward?
For peace, yes.
For peace? What do you mean?
I think peace comes through strength, not through weakness. And I think his 4 years were a good 4 years in terms of foreign policy. Far better than anything we've seen since with Joe Biden.
Thank you.
I mean, Lolani, where do you start? Where do you start? Apart from probably the most sensible thing was Farage asking, do you really have any friends?
It was brilliant.
Emily Makers?
I enjoyed
because
that.
I'm sure you bore them too.
Who enjoyed that? Come on,
man. He handled that so well and so, patiently and gracefully. And the fact that he paused for those moments and said, he nearly died when she was pushing, and pushing is, I think he's having a hard time. I think it was wonderful to watch and to see what an awful journalist she was. I can't even remember her name. It's gone right out of my head. She's so insignificant. But I think he handled it really well. And I think the media frenzy was absolutely crazy. He's not somebody that's in power at the moment. He's not running Britain. So why should he not be there? He's had a good relationship with Trump. It was a very hard time for Trump. So if he wants to be there, I think absolutely fair dues. He should go and support. And, who wouldn't want to go and see one of his wonderful campaigns when he's out speaking in public? I mean, I would love to be at a rally.
But June, there's just an MSM obsession with Nigel Farage, isn't there? It doesn't matter where other politicians go. Trust me, most of these grifters spend multiple weeks across the year out of the country. But when it's Farage, even though he's actually doing something for our country by maintaining this strong relationship with Donald Trump, they are obsessed. It's like how Led by Donkeys remain obsessed about how much money Nigel Farage has been paid by GB News rather than holding the government to account.
Well, the trouble is, Nigel Farage is like a bushfire they can't put out. He keeps popping up, and he's a 30-year seasoned professional, and that man has the right approach to eventually wanting to become the government. The thing about Nigel is his supporters in Clacton that put him in power as an MP are very happy to see him in America, so close to Donald Trump, because the people who put him in Clacton are also the people who see the common sense in the peaceful negotiations that Donald Trump would have with Russia. Most people don't want war. Nigel Farage recognises that. That man is up at 4 o'clock nearly every day. His day is longer than Emily Maitlis's bloody fingernails. So I have absolutely no doubt that he knows exactly how to put the effort in. He can balance a few plates. He can do his GB News. He can service his constituency, and he can do what he wants. His 5 trips to America were money well spent by him, cozying up to Donald. He's met him before. How many MPs do you think Donald Trump could name and recognise?
Oh, totally.
Not many.
And it's more than meeting, isn't it? Because he was in the inner circle on the night of the election at Mar-a-Lago, being introduced to Elon Musk by Trump. And the thing is, Leilani, I think the MSM will make a fundamental error here. And it's the same error they made with Donald Trump back in 2016. They think if they pillory and harass, that we're all going to start thinking like them. Whereas actually, don't you think most ordinary people actually see through what the MSM are trying to do to Nigel?
I do. And I think they're overplaying their hand. And the more they try and vilify him and make him out to be this monster, the more they actually look the fool. Because when people listen to him, they like him. They like how he comes across. He's charismatic. You know, you don't hear people speaking about Farage with the way they speak about Keir Starmer, how people just despise listening to him. Like they hear his voice and they just like, they're disgusted by him. You don't hear people like that. And the MSM keep on pushing Keir Starmer as this wonderful guy, pushing Nigel Farage down as this awful, and people see it. People see it. You know, even at the farmers' protests the other weeks ago, people were talking about how the BBC now is the government mouthpiece. And, you know, that's it. People are seeing through it, more and more people, because they're pushing things the wrong way.
June, you see it on your Facebook page, don't you, as well? People are just bit by bit waking up, realising we can't trust the BBC, realising we can't trust the mainstream media. And it's funny seeing these presenters, like I saw it the other day, with Andy Peters on This Morning, talk about Nigel Farage as if he's one of the most unpopular people in the country. It's like you are so stuck in your Islington dinner party set. You have no idea that actually that isn't how the populace feels about Nigel Farage anymore. Just like there was a big change in the US. I mean, look at J.D. Vance, who's now vice president. He was a never Trumper at some point. So the MSM isn't keeping up with the changing face of how the UK actually feels about Farage. And it isn't filled with this visceral hate. It's actually filled with a feeling of, God, we need to close our borders, and there's probably only one man who's got the balls to do it.
Well, I think the thing about what Nigel Farage can offer, he's the one that stimulated reform into being able to do something. 5 MPs in 7 weeks is an achievement. And what will happen now, because I saw it before with Brexit, because I read my messages, I take notice of what people say to me. What will happen now? We went to the last election with disdain. People gave up. They'd had enough with Brexit. We'd been let down. They'd had enough with Ditch Boris. Every single hurdle that we'd overcome with our democracy by voting, we've been pushed back. People gave up. They didn't care who was in power. In fact, some gave a protest vote to Starmer. Even some business people now, with buyer's remorse, regret that move. But what has happened, Starmer has been the best thing to happen to freedom, because he's waking people up who don't take any notice of politics. And sadly, you need that. To make people fight, you need to give them something to lose. They don't fight when they're comfortable. And the Tories had us just comfortable enough to keep us under. They just had the lid on the pan while it simmered away. Now it's boiling over the stove and people have had enough. Come 2029, I think it is, when the next election comes, by that time, Reform will have gobbled up so many council seats. People will come out and vote again because they will not risk another 4 years of Labour. They know the Tories are finished. My advice, by looking at my message box, is if you are a sincere Conservative, you should do an Andrea Jenkins and jump ship. It's relevant if the party isn't up to scratch, if it's not ticking all the boxes, if it's not fully democratic yet. It's running along the same lines as the Conservative Party. It's a moot point that shouldn't even be discussed. We have so many problems in this country. We need some fighters in the arena, and Nigel Farage can bring them to the table. And I hope to see him win 300 and odd seats next time and just get Reform in. Reform and Nigel Farage back direct democracy, they back proportional representation. You will have a say with someone like that in power. You won't have a say with the Tories because they're not Conservative. It's finished. It's over. It's had its time. The oldest serving political party in the world has cooked its own goose.
I love that analogy of the saucepan boiling over, because I do think that's how we feel. And we saw it with Brexit, didn't we? Lots of people voted for the first time to leave the European Union. I think that will happen at the next general election too, with lots of people voting for the first time to say we have lost faith in the uniparty.
And the younger end, Nigel Farage has captured the younger end because he knows how to communicate. Most MPs, Starmer is, in particular, is Warden, is a Theresa May in a suit. They don't know how to connect with people because they're not interested in them. The difference with Nigel Farage, I know he and Ben Habib are having this bloody rift and it's pointless, but both people can communicate with the working man, with the man in the street, and Nigel Farage is particularly good at it. Tice wouldn't have got this result had he stayed at chair, but at least he stood to one side and let the man. You see, people misunderstand that Nigel Farage is powerful. He's not. He's popular. He gets a lot of airtime, but he's not powerful. He's only an MP. He's a backbencher. He's no more powerful than anybody else in that position. But he has the capacity to discuss topics on GB News, get in people's households who don't use social media, and connect. That's a gift. Being able to stimulate people into understanding complicated issues, that is a gift. There's no backbiting with Ben Habib. Ben Habib lost twice in two various elections. For a start, I think the people of Wellingborough are absolutely bloody crackers not having him for an MP. One of the best people that could be in Parliament. And that's why I support independence as well as reform. As long as we get different faces who talk our language, we'll be fine. But he lost. He couldn't stay in his position because you can't if you've lost a seat. Nigel Farage needs someone who's in the House of Commons to do his deputisation when he's not there. And Nigel will work now. He's too old. I'm 67 today, actually. So Nigel Farage.
Happy birthday!
Oh, don't put it on. Don't put it on.
Too late, June.
He's 61. He's 61. The stamina that it takes to do something like what he's decided to undertake, he'll burn himself out. This is the last chance saloon, this. And people who dilute that are cutting. It's self-harm. You might as well sit there self-harming, because this is your one shot. This next 4 years is critical. Nigel will be working for that election right now, gathering council seats. This will go on as well as his constituency's work and as well as supporting Donald Trump. This man is focused, and we need that. because these other people are career politicians. It's took 30 years for this man to get a foothold in British politics. And if we let that go, believe me, the rope gets very slippery and it's a quick fall to the bottom.